Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you again for joining us today to talk about the Child and Adult Care Food Program. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to all registrants in addition to the slide deck that you're currently viewing and other resources. Please feel welcome to throw your questions or comments in the chat as they arise. There's a dedicated time for question and answer at the end of the webinar. And my name is Cody, and I'm the After School and Summer Meal Specialist at Hunger Solutions New York. I'm joined by our CACFP Specialist, Kayla Snyder, and Public Affairs Director, Krista Hesdorfer. Hunger Solutions New York is a statewide nonprofit that performs outreach and advocacy on behalf of the federally funded nutrition programs. Most folks are familiar with SNAP and WIC, but Summer Meals, also known as SFSP or the Summer Food Service Program, and CACFP are also in our portfolio. We work one-on-one with after-school programs to determine if they are eligible for after-school meals, how to make it work well for their program, and we can help walk folks through the application process. So for the agenda, we will be giving an overview of CACFP and then move into a panel discussion featuring Rose Roa Higgins, the Town Clubhouse Director of Boys and Girls Club of the North Towns, Heidi Bogue, the lead cook at Jamestown YMCA, and John Barber, the VP of Operations, also from Jamestown YMCA. A big thanks to our panelists for taking time out of their day to join us. Thank you all. And like I said, there will be time for Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we'll briefly overview some additional resources. So next slide, please, Kayla. Okay, so as you can see from the pie chart here, only a small number of students, which is indicated by that small orange slice, who are eligible for the free or reduced price lunch through the National School Lunch Program are receiving supper through CACFP. And this is not New York State specific. CACFP is an underutilized program across the nation. So we're really excited to promote CACFP and glad that you have joined us today. And I'll pass now to my colleague, Kayla.
Thanks, Cody. So as Cody mentioned, we are talking about the after-school meal and snack component of the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So for those of you who don't know, it is administered in New York State by the Department of Health. And CACFP after-school meals and snacks is a way for you all to help ensure that the kids you serve are receiving 3 healthy school meals every day. There might be some folks on the call who are familiar with serving snacks through the after-school snacks through the National School Lunch Program. CACFP offers nearly 4 times the reimbursement of that program's reimbursement. So there could be a good opportunity to switch there. So how does it work? Programs will serve the meals. They'll keep track of how many meals they are serving, and they'll request reimbursement on a monthly basis. On your screen, there is an example of how much additional reimbursement programs could receive if they utilize CACFP after school meals and snacks. Currently, the reimbursement rate is $4.03 per meal and $1.18 per snack. These reimbursement rates are updated generally in August of each year. And when they are updated, we'll be sure to have that information up on our website. But for right now, these are the current reimbursement rates. So as you can see, some programs might be eligible to receive up to an additional $40,000 in reimbursement to help their programs out. So how will you implement after-school meals? There are a couple of ways. There are a couple of criteria that programs need to meet. So in order to qualify, programs must be located in an enrollment area of a school where greater than 50 or 50% of students qualify for free or reduced price school meals. Programs must also provide an organized, regularly scheduled enrichment activity. So this could be something as easy as homework help after school, or offering tutoring, or some sort of club, offering some sort of club after school. And the program must also obviously serve school-age kids, 18 and younger. If you're still unsure if after-school meals is a good fit for your site or your program, We encourage folks to consider piloting a program. You can pilot an after-school meal at one program or site that you oversee, see how it goes, and then look towards expanding in the future. You don't just have one shot. You can sort of do what works for your site and your program and whatever helps with your capacity. Just a little bit of a visual for folks to see how CACFP works. The USDA implements all of the rules that folks need to follow for CACFP. So they'll also determine meal requirements, reimbursement rates, things like that. In New York State, as I said earlier, New York State Department of Health administers the program. And then sites, whether they're in a community center, an after-school program in a community center, or at an elementary school or a middle school, or they're at your local YMCA, those sites will work with their sponsors to help implement and do any other administrative tasks involved with serving after-school meals. There are some meal patterns that folks will need to follow. So in general, these meal patterns must include a vegetable, a fruit or a second vegetable, a meat or a meat alternate, and then they also need to serve milk. So snacks for this age group must include at least two of those components, such as a vegetable and a grain plus water if no other beverage is provided. As long as the meals served are meeting the CACFP meal pattern requirements, providers can be flexible to meet the needs of their participants and staff. Some providers may choose to serve hot or cold meals. They can certainly choose to accommodate any dietary needs that the kids may have. And we've seen that folks will create menus that repeat throughout the month or throughout the season, depending on what's available, depending on what the kids might like. The New York State Department of Health also provides training and assistance to help providers develop these menus. So how do you apply for after-school meals and snacks? You can email cacfp@health.ny.gov and you put outreach coordinator in the subject line and connect with your local Department of Health representative to apply. You can also complete an online pre-screening guide and it will walk you through some questions. And at the end, should you meet all the criteria to be eligible for after-school meals and snacks, your information will be passed along to someone at the Department of Health and they will connect with you. It is also worth noting you can apply for after-school meals and snacks through CACFP at any time of the year, including over the summer. I know this school year is winding down, but as you're starting to think about what next school year looks like, consider maybe applying or looking into apply for after-school meals and snacks. You can learn more by visiting afterschoolmealsny.org. You can also connect with myself or my colleague, Cody. We are a resource for you all if you're looking to implement after-school meals and snacks at your sites or programs. I'm going to turn it back over to Cody.
So we wanted to take a dedicated moment to thank you all for everything you do to bring nutritious meals to the children, teens, and families that you serve. You are very seen and very appreciated. And there is also on the next slide a quick click or call to action. There's an opportunity that we wanted to put on your radar. The 10-cent additional CACFP reimbursement that was offered by the 2022 Keep Kids Fed Act expires on June 30th, 2023. But Representatives Spanberger and Fitzpatrick have sponsored the Helping Schools Keep Kids Fed Act of 2023 to continue the reimbursement. By clicking the link on the slide, you can send a letter to your representative asking them to co-sponsor the bill. We also wanted to promote the idea of inviting your electeds to dine with you and the children in your care. During August, our congressional representatives should be back in New York. Inviting them into your centers is an opportunity to show them firsthand the importance of the CACFP program. If you're interested, the National CACFP Sponsors Association is offering a webinar to walk you through the whole process, from extending the initial invite to following up after a successful visit. And I'll pass back to Kayla for the panel discussion.
Excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone. So we have Heidi, John, and Rose here today to sort of entice you all into why serving after school meals and snacks through CACFP is such a good idea. So my first question, I don't know who wants to answer first, Rose or John or Heidi. Let's start with Rose. So Rose, can you provide us some background about your program and what your role is? Rose, you're on mute.
I'm
Fabulous.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. So this year, currently, I have about 110 kids registered, and I'm serving 60 meals a day. And I serve 50 snacks. Now, the reason why I don't order 100 a day is because not all the children eat. And that's something that you will learn to gauge as you go along, because what you don't want to do is order food that no one's eating because you still have to pay for it. So that's important to make it to make a distinction. Okay, the question was, how am I currently running the program?
Yeah, we just want an overview of your program and what your role is.
Okay, I'm the unit director of the Boys and Girls Club of the North Towns. So when my kids come in, their option is a dinner. They can either eat a dinner or they can have a snack. So that's why. So we offer both, because there are children who don't want to eat a dinner, and then there's kids who do. So we offer both, and it's very successful. Every child usually eats something. Which is very important to us, because these children have been in school all day, believe it or not. Sometimes they don't eat lunch. They come here and they're here with us for 3 more hours. And we're not going to be able to do anything with them if they're hungry. Nothing. If a child is hungry, there's no way he's going to have his brain able to function, to focus on what we're doing. The Boys and Girls Club is not a typical after-school program. We do more than enrichment in academics. We do a lot of social skills, leadership building, high-yield activities. We have a gym. We have a game room. So the kids, because the kids lack a lot of quality time outside, because of the way society is, it's very important that they come here and socialize with their peers on a basis, sort of like when we used to go outside and play. So, but feeding them food is the beginning. Without the food, you're not going to get all the rest of the stuff that is needed to keep them here for 3 hours.
Excellent. Thank you for that very good overview, Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So John and Heidi, can both of you tell us a little bit more about your programs and what roles you have?
Sure. Yeah, glad to. So my role is I'm our vice president of operations, but Heidi is our lead cook. So between the two of us, my role is really working more administratively with how we interact with these federal meal programs. We use a couple. We use CACFP, which is the topic of today's conversation, but we also use in the summer SFSP, which is the summer food service program. And so between Heidi and myself, we're responsible for making sure that we're meeting criteria with CACFP to bring meals to kids. Now I work broadly with our partners. So we have Y sites where we provide meals. That includes 3 school-based after-school programs where we provide meals, but we also have 2 partners that we work with. One is a local tutoring agency. They have kids who come in for tutoring, but our team delivers meals there. And we do work with the Boys and Girls Club in Jamestown. And they have a full evening of programs, but we actually are their meal provider. So the way that we help serve is not only our kids that are in our Y programs receiving meals, but we're also able to work with some partner sites who who maybe don't have the capacity to become a sponsor themselves or prepare the meals themselves, but we're able to bring those to them. And so then in addition, we do have childcare sites. So these are programs for younger children, and those also utilize CACFP. And for us, the program has been really valuable because in other spaces where we hold programs, meals and snacks you don't work with kids long before you know you do need to provide them some food. And so meals become a part of your bottom line. They're part of your budget, and they get tacked on to parent fees or other things that you're doing. But when you have a program that's located in a neighborhood that's serving at-risk or low-income students, being able to utilize something like CACFP to supplement, offset, or even really cover a lot of the costs of meal programs for us is a real asset. Now, I look very broad picture, but Heidi, I'll let her. She's our lead cook, and she's really the one that day to day is really making that happen. And maybe you can talk about the kinds of meals that they're serving.
Sure. Do you want me to speak into that now, or do you want to wait and just do overviews now?
Yeah, you can certainly talk about the types of meals and stuff that you serve. I know, John and Rose did a very good job about touching on some of the reasons why this program is important, not only to the kids that you serve, but also your bottom line, right? So we'd love to hear more about the meals and snacks that you serve that work well for your program.
Okay. So we serve at 9 different sites. 2 of them receive a hot meal. Those are UPK and childcare sites. And then the other sites receive a bagged cold meal that's, as good as it can be. And they're all dinners or lunch, right? Is it considered lunch, dinner?
Consider a supper.
A supper, yeah. So they're a supper, and at one of the sites they receive both a supper and a snack right now. So that's the Boys and Girls Club. Do you want to hear more?
I'll speak to this though. If these are sites that are considering jumping into CACFP and supplementing meals, the big difference. For many years, we served snacks at various after-school program sites, but about probably was 7 years ago, we decided to start moving to something we call Super Snack, and that was providing 5-element meals for the kids that are in our programs. And the reason we did that was just the difference. We had kids that were coming to our programs and they were hungry, and so by increasing our meals to a 5-element meal, now these are often cold meals, and to a kid. In fact, in our programs, they may even use the word snack, but this allows us to bring them a sandwich, a piece of fruit, a vegetable, and some milk to serve this full 5-element meal, which helps in 2 ways. Number one, you're providing better for these kids that may go home and there's not a supper at all, but 2, for us, it even really helped us. You can see the difference in terms of the reimbursement rates for those meals, and it really goes a long way to help you cover your meal costs, because as you start to do this, you do end up having more extended staff costs and equipment costs, and so that extra reimbursement really helps you do that, to address hunger better around kids and provide a more robust meal.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we all, hunger insecurity is unfortunately alive and well in so many of our communities. So implementing after-school meals and snacks through your after-school programs is a really good way to sort of help close that gap. I do apologize. Someone is mowing the lawn right now, so I hope everyone can still hear me okay. So I'm going to move on to my next question. We're going to kick it back over to Rose. So Rose, can you tell us anything more about any of the specific meals or snacks that you serve to the kids? Are there any meals or snacks that you serve that they really like?
Well, they like Taco Tuesday. So tacos are good. I have children from a variety of backgrounds. I have children who don't eat traditional, like, what would you say, American food. So it is a challenge to feed your population. You need to know your population. We have a caterer. So the food is brought in, it's already cooked, everything's prepared, and we have warmers, and we put the food in warmers and then we serve it. There are meals that the children like more than others, but they will eat something of the plate. They'll eat something of every dish that's there. Like you're able to prepare your own food, so you have an advantage of knowing your population and preparing what they like and what they eat. I don't have that because the caterer that our vendor, he also delivers to a lot more places, and it's what, it's what he offers. We do give him our opinion, and he does try to make it, more appealing to our members. Yesterday they had turkey on rye, like sub rolls with mayonnaise. They had pineapples, they had green beans, and apples. So it was, there was something there that they would eat. Now for snack, there was yogurt, and he also, when he does yogurt, he sends Cheerios. The kids love to take the Cheerios and mix it in their yogurt for snack. That's a great snack, in my opinion. Sometimes they'll do little bags of carrots with some ranch dressing, or we have pasta. Hot dogs they do hot dogs. There's like a meatloaf. There's hamburgers. There is no pork. And most everything is turkey. And then the only time, and then they do beef. But chicken nuggets, that's where we go with the chicken. Also, he'll make a pasta dish with chicken in it. He'll do a cold chicken salad. So it's just depends on where you get your food, who your vendor is. I have switched vendors over the years. One time, I'm happier with the new vendor. And that's it. That's, just the biggest challenge is trying to get meals that will be appealing to a diverse background. And that's hard. That's the challenge. Besides that, but the food is pretty good, especially the fresh fruit and the vegetables.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like you serve a great variety of foods in your program. So Rose works with a vendor to serve food in her program, and John and Heidi, sounds like you, everything is prepared right on site, and you can also sort of offer various foods to other programs that might need it. Are there any specific meals or snacks that work well in your programs that you see the kids like or don't like?
Sure. I think I just want to back that up, Rose, and say that is probably the biggest challenge is providing a meal that's going to appeal to our diverse community. One thing is, some kids think that pasta, when it's cold, it's raw because they've never eaten cold pasta like ever, because everything's hot. Their sandwiches are hot, everything's hot. So I've discovered along the way that the most the biggest hit meals are meals that allow a child to feel like they have choices and more control. So rather than sending a wrap that is completely wrapped and prepared for them, we bag a wrap and we put chicken salad in a cup, and we put the fruit in a cup, and we put the spinach in a bag. And so some kids eat the spinach, some will eat it all, some won't eat any. So, but yeah, the more empowered they feel with their meal, and the more empowered they feel, the better, the more successful the meal is. And then with the younger kids and the hot meals, the more I can hide the vegetables sometimes, the better. So we have like this pizza pasta I can't never get it off the menu. It's been on the menu rotating for years at this point. So, but I pulverize the zucchini, and it's in there with the meat, and everything's all together with the pasta and the sauce. So they get everything they're supposed to get. But they don't know they're eating zucchini, and they're young and their palate is developing. So it's good to stay on the mild side of things anyways. Their palates get overwhelmed these days with processed foods and sugars, and so I really try to keep it as basic as possible with the littler kids. But sandwiches are big,
Excellent. No, that's really great. A variety is the spice of life, right?
Yeah.
And I think, it's really great to also hear from you all and see the various ways that you implement it, right? Between making your own food, having a vendor come in, offering hot meals, offering cold meals. It's really great to see the variety that folks can choose from in order to meet the needs of their program. So my last question for you all is, what advice would you give to folks thinking about implementing after school meals and snacks in their program? Rose, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, my advice would be go for it. If you have an after school program, unless your kids bring their own food, you owe it to them to feed them. I mean, you're offering them a program, you're expecting them to come from after school. They need to eat. They just do. They need to eat. They're young. We don't know what their day was like at school. We don't know what's going to happen when they go away from us. It depends where you are. You got to know your population. My population, 100% qualifies for free food at school. So that means they qualify for a snack or dinner of their choice, and they can eat both. I have kids here who will eat a snack and dinner. And obesity in this club is very low. So I, to tell you the truth, maybe 1 or 2 kids are obese. That's out of 100 kids. That's really good. So they're not being fed. They're not anywhere getting all kinds of junk food. There's really no junk food here. We don't have pop machines. We don't have anything like that unless it's a party or a special event. That's the only time they're going to get candy out of us. So we're also, by offering the food that they don't usually see over a long period of time, they'll more likely to taste it. And then they may find out, wow, I do like that. So there's a lot of benefits. The main one is that they have food in their stomachs and that they can interact in your program and you can fulfill your objectives for whatever, your mission is of your program.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rose says just go for it. John and Heidi, do you have any advice for folks on the call today?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the call here, if you're thinking about starting, there's all sorts of things that seem like barriers or challenges to getting started. But in our case, we have a model, and honestly, it's one we built into where we have a central kitchen and we produce our meals and we deliver them. That's been a buildup in infrastructure. We didn't start there. We started very small. In fact, I started with a teen center staff member who started whipping stuff up in a crock pot to be able to serve. That's where we started. But now we have a central kitchen and vehicles that in delivery that go out, and we were able to expand. But with Rose on the call, you actually have a whole other option, and that's to be able to look to vendors that actually are looking for these locations to be able to serve meals. And you actually can have meals that have been prepared, meet the meal guidelines, and are delivered to your door, ready for you to serve. And that can come in hot and cold. So there's various ways to approach how you make sure you get nutrition to your kids. And they don't all have to be the same, but it's ultimately with the same goal of what you're going to do. And there's often, when you start to think through the barriers of why you aren't doing it, there's also a solution there as well with how to do it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would like to say is that my program here right now has about 100 kids registered, but we have 5 clubs, and at one time we had 12. So our vendor is delivering, I would say 450 meals a day. That's just to the Boys and Girls Club of the North Towns. So, and it is easier. We started a long time ago, 15 years ago. And yeah, we were thinking about making, our own food. But as we got bigger and bigger, we're here. Our organization really wasn't we're not designed to make our own food. We do have a kitchen in that would encompass a lot of other things. But if you can do it, that's great. And start small. That would be my advice. Start small, find a vendor, you get reimbursed. The reimbursement alone could pay for your staffing. The reporting is simple. It's done every month. It's really easy. You go to a training, they tell you there are certain guidelines you have to follow. But once you get into the habit of following those guidelines, the children will adjust to that because kids are used to eating a certain way at one place, but they will adjust in your program. That's about all I could say. I would just start small, and I would definitely do it though, because financially it's only going to enhance your program. And the parents, parents are going to be really a lot happier that their kids are getting another meal.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. So like the folks on the call have said, if you're apprehensive about starting with after school meals, there's resources available to you. You don't have to serve meals at all your programs at once. You can start small. You can pilot one program and expand as needed. You can apply anytime during the year. So now is a really great time to think about and think forward about next year. Thank you, Rose, John, and Heidi for talking a little bit about your program. It's really great to see the variety of ways in which you approach feeding the kids in your care. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to jump back into the rest of our slideshow, which is really just some resources for you all. Oops, bear with me here.
And if anyone has any questions and wants to pop them into the chat, now is a great time to put those forward. I did actually have a question for our panelists about inviting an elected official to join them for a meal. We mentioned that in the slideshow, and I was just curious if either of y'all have done that at your respective sites, or if you hadn't, if you're considering it.
I have not invited them to sit down with the meal per se, but I've had elected officials do a whole walk through the building. They were introduced to the food program, but they were also introduced to other areas of, how we provide services to our members. But the food program is huge. Every elective person who's walked in this building is like, wow, they get to eat, they're very happy.
Thanks, Rose. Yeah, I think it speaks multitudes for folks to see things with their own eyes, what's happening behind these doors and what's being provided for children and their ability of their parents to work as a result. And we do have a question that came through in the chat.
If you want, I can hop in here.
That'd be great, Krista. Thank you.
So John is asking what records are kept for a licensed program versus an at-risk site. So there's a couple of different pieces to this. So when you're talking about licensing, that's really through a license or registration is through the Office of Children and Family Services, or OCFS. For the purposes of after-school meals, they defer to whether you need a license or a registration anyway. So there's no additional requirement to get licensed or registered if you aren't already required to do so. But if your program needs to be licensed or registered with OCFS, you're going to need to do that in order to tap into the after school meals program. So your existing requirements still stand for your after school program, whether it's a school age childcare program that needs to be registered or something like a drop-in site that might be exempt. We have some resources to help walk you through whether you might be exempt from registration or whether you fall into that bucket. It's certainly not our area of expertise. We would totally defer to OCFS on it, but we do have some resources that can help with that, and feel free to reach out for those. And then I think just in terms of of record keeping generally for the program. There are certain documents that you need to submit as part of the application process for after school meals. That would be things like, a general plan for how you would manage and sort of budget in the program, how you would staff it, a sample menu for what you would be serving to kids. And all of that is so that the Department of Health can just make sure that you have the systems and processes in place to remain sort of in line with the requirements of the program and get that reimbursement. And then on a monthly basis, there's a little bit of paperwork and record keeping that's required to keep track of what you're serving, how you're paying for it, those pieces. Can you do both a licensed and an at-risk site? So I'm interpreting this question, and you can correct my interpretation if I'm reading it wrong, but I'm reading this as you have a licensed childcare, and then you also have an after-school program that's operating. And yeah, you can use CACFP for both as long as both qualify. And John, I think you said your program is set up like this, right? You have childcare that's using that component of CACFP, and then you have the at-risk after-school programs.
Yeah, we do. And I may be hearing John's question even different than you, because we actually, even in our after school portion, we have in our school-based programs, those are licensed childcare programs, but they serve CACFP. But then we do have a teen center, which is just an at-risk site. It also serves CACFP meals. And when it comes to that month-to-month reporting or the actual reporting of numbers between the two, other than the setup of the site, you'll link your licensed sites to their license number, but an at-risk site will be deemed at risk. But other than that, the reporting, how you have to track what meals you serve, food production records, it's all the same. It really doesn't matter from licensed to at risk. It's all the same. The reimbursement's the same. In fact, they're seamless together. It does distinguish between those licensed and at-risk sites. And your license programs, actually part of your licensing, you'll end up reporting on things like your menus. You'll provide that. Your at-risk doesn't have that aspect.
All right, and we have a question from Karen about being a school district. Is there an educational component required for these meals to be served, or is it simply providing a meal to students? So regardless of whether you're from a school district or a community-based organization or wherever you're from, in order to receive the reimbursement and participate in CACFP for after-school meals, you do need to include some type of educational or enrichment component to your program. So like Kayla mentioned earlier, that might be something like a homework help room that students can stop by. Maybe it's their Spanish club meets after school, or robotics club, something like that. Or you might have really formalized programs. Like I know a lot of schools run a 21st Century Community Learning Center program or an Advantage After School program through the state. There's really a broad range of activities that would meet that requirement, but all types of CACFP sponsors, including school districts, would need to meet that requirement. So Karen, if that's something you want to talk about a little bit further in the context of what activities are offered in your school, we'd be more than happy to talk one-on-one and figure out how you can meet that requirement. I'll just, if there's anything else, like please keep the questions coming, but I just wanted to harken back to two things that came up in the panel discussion. I mean, first of all, thank you for all of your insights and advice and observations from your experience. It's super duper helpful. And I'm sure it is especially so for folks who are considering getting started. I wanted to just lift back up this concept of providing both a snack and a supper. You can do that as long as your program is more than 2.5 hours long. That's sort of the guidepost for the Department of Health. You could provide a meal at the end of the school day, like right at the start of your program, and then serve a snack right before kids head home, or vice versa. that's a great way to maximize what you're able to provide to the kids, bring in a little bit more reimbursement, and make sure that they're heading home with something in their stomach then as well. So just wanted to lift that up. And then I also took a note here in the conversation around like caterers and vendors as an option. Keep in mind your local school district. In many cases across the state, there will be a community-based organization that's running an after-school program in the school or nearby the school, and they actually use the school district as their vendor. Because the school is already so well versed in operating child nutrition programs. A lot of schools already do after school meals for the programs that they serve. They do summer meals throughout their community. So in many cases, the school district can be a really good option to be a food vendor for you, even though they're not what you might typically think of as a food service vendor. And then also, of course, keep programs like those YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs in mind. I know there are at least a handful across the state that are doing what John has described, where you're serving additional sites throughout the community and becoming that food vendor there too. So there's a whole lot of options that are available to folks even beyond sort of the commercial food vendor space. That can be a little bit more challenging in rural areas, I know, to find a traditional food service vendor. So just wanted to flag both of those pieces as really helpful, and I'm glad that you all mentioned them.
Thanks, Krista. Yeah, go
Well,
ahead,
I
Bruce.
would like, is it all right if I thank you for inviting me to this? I have another meeting to be at, but I actually learned some stuff myself.
Awesome. Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you, Rose.
So
Yes.
I will be going, but thank you for inviting me.
Of course,
Absolutely.
take care.
Okay.
And just as
thank
a
you.
reminder, yeah, of course. As a reminder for all folks, the webinar was recorded and will be made available to all registrants in addition to the slide deck. This last slide links out to some great resources, including a CACFP eligibility pre-screening tool. We did want to thank our panelists one more time. Thank you, Rose and John and Heidi, and everyone else for attending. Please reach out to our team at Hunger Solutions New York with any additional questions, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.